Hi, everybody. This is Jimmy DeYoung with Prophecy Today video. On Prophecy Today weekend, we spoke with our broadcast partners for their thoughts on the effects of the outcome of the presidential election in America. I want to share with you in just a moment my thoughts on the elections and how government, how human government, does play a role in God's plan for the ages and in particular in the future. We'll get to that in just a moment. Our broadcast partners also talked about other stories. For example, we talked with Ken Timmerman, and he talked about the cover-up going on at the White House and with different cabinet members throughout the Obama administration as it relates to the Benghazi terrorist attack and the killing of our ambassador there in the consulate. We also talked about Islamic radicals visiting the White House a number of times, and the United States Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Dempsey, in Israel, trying to stop the Israelis from doing a pre-emptive strike on the Iranian nuclear weapons program. Dave Dolan gave us our Middle East news update. He talked about the Jerusalem mayor saying, "Let my people pray." The secular Jerusalem mayor is calling for the governmental officials in Israel to open up the opportunity for Christians, Jews, and Muslims to pray on the Temple Mount. A very interesting story covered by David Dolan. And we also talked about the possibility that Jordan may form a federation with the Palestinians, taking in the West Bank, or we term it the area of Judea and Samaria. Itamar Marcus talked about a mother who put a suicide belt on her child. And that's a part of the propaganda ploy that the Palestinian media is using in an effort to incite the Palestinians against the Jewish state of Israel as they try to take back all the land that belongs to the Israelis. Dr. Rob Congdon, he reported on the European Union. We talked about Tony Blair. He's the peace envoy for the Middle East as it relates to the quartet. He says that the European Union needs a super president. And boy, that plays into the end-time scenario that can be found in Bible prophecy. Our broadcast partners were very effective giving us insight into these current events that are setting the stage for Bible prophecy to be fulfilled. You can re-listen to any of these conversations with our broadcast partners by going to prophecytoday.com and PTRN. Prophecy Today Radio Network. Prophecy Today Radio Network is radio when you want it, at your convenience, when it's good for you to be able to listen. You can listen to the entire program, or you can go back and listen to the individual conversations that are had with our broadcast partners. May I suggest you call a friend, tell them about this opportunity to hear some wonderful insights into current events that are happening in our world. Politics does set the stage for the prophetic to be fulfilled. This has been the case down through the centuries from the time that God put in place the institution of human government. That was done in Genesis chapter 9 and verse 6. Right after the flood, God instituted human government when he gave Noah that institution. That's, again, Genesis chapter 9 and verse 6. God allowed Egypt, for example, to take the Jews into bondage, as foretold in the Abrahamic covenant, Genesis chapter 15, and God did follow through with that prophecy he gave Abraham, who was the father of the Jewish people. The Lord allowed Nebuchadnezzar to take the Jewish people into captivity so that the land could receive its Sabbath, its Shabbat. God told the Jewish people in Leviticus chapter 25 to rest the land every 7 years. Well, the Jewish people did not do that, so he took them out of the land for that 70-year sabbatical period of time so that the land would receive its rest as he had told the Jewish people to do. If you notice in 2 Chronicles chapter 36, the Lord tells us through that passage of Scripture that the prophecy of Jeremiah 25:11, 29:10, which said the Jewish people would be out of the land for a 70-year period of time, and that's why the Babylonian captivity was for that 70 years, to allow the prophecies of Jeremiah to be fulfilled. The Lord then raised up King Cyrus to allow the Jews to return to Jerusalem to rebuild their temple. That's Ezra chapter 2. Back in the book of Isaiah, chapter 44 and also chapter 45, the Lord said that in the time after the Babylonian captivity, he would raise up a world leader to allow the Jews to return. In fact, he even gave the name of that world leader. His name was Cyrus. When you look at Ezra chapter 1 and chapter 2, you see that Cyrus was raised up. He allowed about 50,000 Jews under the leadership of Zerubbabel to go back to Jerusalem and to rebuild the temple. These are just a few examples of how the Lord has used human government down through the years. He will use human government in the future as well. With the revival of the Roman Empire, we will see Daniel chapter 7 and verse 7 be fulfilled. The 10 horns will come about, and that will be the revived Roman Empire. And he will allow out of those 10 horns the little horn, which is the Antichrist, Daniel chapter 7 and verse 8. And in the first 3.5 years of the tribulation period, the church, the false church, will be headquartered in Rome, Italy, where I am today. Then human government destroys the church, Revelation chapter 17 and verse 16, because the Lord put into the hearts of political leaders to accomplish his will. And that's Revelation chapter 17 and verse 17. United States citizens, at least those who chose to exercise their franchise to vote this last presidential election, decided to return President Obama to the White House for 4 more years. God has a prophetic plan, and that plan will be fulfilled, and he will use human world leaders to accomplish his will. But remember, the next event to happen is the rapture of the church. Jesus shouts, the archangel shouts, the trump of God sounds, and we're caught up to be with him in the air. And with everything we talked about on this broadcast today, the evidence is very strong that that rapture could happen at any moment. And having said that, nothing left for me to say, except let's keep looking up until